This video is brought to you by Recurrent, an essential EV tool that gives free access to TFL EV viewers in the US. With Recurrent, EV shoppers can check range and battery info on used cars. EV owners can connect to compare their range and battery health to similar vehicles. And EV sellers can use Recurrent to get more money for their sales. With Recurrent, we can find, drive, and sell electric cars positively. Click on the link in the description below to get free access to Recurrent's amazing EV tools.
Hey Tommy, is Tesla toxic? Buyers are staying away from the brand and many owners are abandoning it. And in this video, we're going to talk about the numbers that are driving that trend. We're going to talk about what's happening abroad and we're going to talk about why it's happening. So let's get right into it.
Yeah, for sure. So really interesting story we're talking about today because Tesla is the most hot button issue right now. We're going to talk about the share price, talk about sales numbers, and talk about what could be contributing to this. So
for years, as you know, Tesla has been the most valuable company on earth, period. But it's had a really rough start to 2025.
So the stock price has fallen 20% in the last week alone. Not a great time if you're a Tesla investor. It's down 26% in the last month, and it's under $300 a share for the first time since November.
And Tesla is also experiencing a pretty dramatic sales slump. In fact, European sales plummeted to their lowest numbers in years as buyers look elsewhere. But why? What's contributing to Tesla's recent slide? Let's start with the numbers.
So in Europe, Tesla sales across the continent are down, and not just a little down, they are down 45% in January alone. That's fewer than 10,000 cars sold.
Yeah, that's kind of like what the F-150 sells in a few weeks. I know the two don't compete, but it just gives you a perspective on what that really means in terms of real number sales in the car market.
Now, they sold, over 18,000 vehicles in January 2024. So now that we're under 10,000, that's a really big slump. And Tesla's market share in the EU fell by half to 1.8% of the total car market. And this is a market where new battery electric vehicles are very, very popular. They're actually getting more and more popular. Sales proportionally grew by more than 1/3 last month. So the fact that Tesla sales are down that much is very alarming.
So let's talk about individual countries, Tommy. In Germany, Tesla sales are down, get this, 60%. And in France, they're down 63%.
And there's obviously some events that led to that, which we'll talk about toward the end of this video. And US sales aren't quite as dramatic, but they did drop. Sales fell about 1%. And globally, also down as well. So they delivered 1.7 million vehicles globally, but that was also down by about 1% by the end of 2024.
Yeah, and that's at the end of 2024, and it's really in 2025 where things have hit the skids. But what we could be seeing in Europe is an accelerated downward trend driven by different factors. We'll have a better idea of what exactly is happening with the next quarterly reports due out at the beginning of April, Tommy. So let's talk about what brings on these sales and what is causing them to drop. So, of course, as you know, there are new models coming.
Yeah, which is alarming that we're seeing these drops, especially in Europe, because we've got the new Model 3, which is codenamed Highland. We've got the new Model Y, which is just hitting the streets with the Juniper codename. The needle seems to be moving the wrong way, especially considering that these are maybe not all new cars, but heavily redone with a lot of improvements to the models.
Yeah, and as you know, Tommy, we've been doing this for 15 years, and the bloodstream of any car company is new products. And when you see new products being introduced and sales declining, it's certainly a red flag. Now, part of the reason that sales are down is because of these promises made and promises broken. Now, let's talk about China. Chinese buyers in particular haven't been happy with the relatively limited functionality of Tesla's full self-driving tech.
Yeah, that's right. So full self-driving is a really big deal in China. And across the board, Chinese automakers are really killing it. We've seen some of their products in person and in videos, and the stuff that they're doing, especially at the price point in China, have been on fire. And we're also seeing this consumer trend toward Chinese consumers looking to buy more homegrown products. So we're seeing vehicles like the BYD, one of the largest automakers, doing extremely well in China and also abroad. So BYD in the UK sold 9,000 cars in the UK in 2024. That's a 658% increase from 2023. And it really seems like, especially with their emphasis on self-driving tech, that the homegrown automakers are doing well in China.
Yeah, and did you know that BYD offers their own version of full self-driving?
Sure.
And many Chinese buyers are saying that not only does it work better than Tesla's, because Tesla just rolled out their latest version of FSD in China, but they don't charge for it, dude. It's free. BYD basically gives you full self-driving and you don't have to pay anything. unlike Tesla, where it's a very expensive option.
Now, the interesting thing is, let's take China out of the equation for a second, talk about the US, because we're seeing a decline in Tesla sales, but interestingly, the competition is selling quite well. So Ford Mustang Mach-E, even though it's a relatively old product, recently refreshed, but not a brand new car, improved 27% last year. They sold 51,000. Ioniq 5 sales increased 31%, and EV6 sales were up 15%.
Yeah, so Hyundai Ioniq 5 sold 44,400, EV6 sold 21,715. Now Chevy Blazer EV sales improved 4,695%.
Okay. Well, listen, that might be because of lack of availability, right? The previous years. Equinox also sold 28,000. Lyric was way up 210%. Yeah. And interestingly, Honda's really killing it with the Prologue, 33,000 sold. Rivian delivered 51,000 units. So the EV market, even though we're seeing a lot of criticism from a lot of people, is pretty strong in the US. At least it was in 2024.
Yeah, to be clear, Tesla is still the dominant market force here. For now, at least, Model 3 and Model Y still made up 43% of the market in America. How about the Cybertruck, dude?
Cybertruck outsold rivals like the F-150 Lightning and Rivian R1T by 39,000 sales, but that gap is shrinking. And certainly when Elon came out and said that the Cybertruck was going to take the F-150 by storm, maybe it has the Lightning, but definitely not the gas version, because those are still selling well into the many, many hundreds of thousands of units.
Yeah, and of course, I think we all know this. This is the elephant in the room, or shall I say the Elon Musk in the room. The reason that Tesla sales are plummeting is because they've put themselves in a very difficult position. And let me kind of explain. So once upon a time, Tesla was the darling of the left, shall we say the Democrats, because Elon Musk came out and said that this is a brand that is going to help the environment. It's going to help sell more cars because there's more people that are worried about climate change. And then, of course, recently he made this hard right turn, which is problematic for a company like Tesla, because the majority of Tesla buyers are on the left side, but then when he made the hard right, he alienated the left side, the Democrats. And the problem with going toward the Republican side is that Republicans don't like, in general, electric cars, think that they're, well, for a better word, the devil. As you know, Trump is yanking out, 8,000 chargers out of federal buildings. So this is not a customer that necessarily wants electric cars. So now you're in a position where Tesla stores are being picketed, and the other side of the political aisle is not buying Teslas because, of course, they don't like the fact that they're powered by electrons instead of the dinosaurs. I know they're not the dinosaurs, but I like saying that.
So the cars are really good, and the technology is good, and I still think in some ways they lead over a lot of competition, especially with integration, route planning, and you know that while the Tesla supercharger network has expanded to other vehicles, it still is an advantage to have a Tesla and the integrated route planning. Like you said, though, the problem is that it's been so politicized, more so than even the typical EV, that I think a lot of would-be Tesla buyers are looking in other directions, and especially in Europe, where they are very sensitive toward any kind of shift toward the far right. I could even potentially see Tesla pulling out of Europe, closing down maybe their German factories, and really dwindling that market, because down 45% in a month is pretty nuts. That's pretty insane.
Well, you said it's been politicized. No, I mean, the CEO politicized it. So
yeah, but EVs in general have been politicized, and then he has hyper politicized this one company in particular.
You know, I'll give you an analogy, okay? I think let's call Mr. Musk the captain of the Titanic. And to me, what it seems like he's done on purpose is steer into the iceberg to see what would happen. And then instead of going down with the ship, I think about 2 years ago, he got off the ship and then kind of did his German salute to the rest of the car industry as the ship was sinking. And I think that he is no longer engaged and no longer interested in running the company. And that's obvious because he's not engaged and not running the company. And that's a problem for Tesla. And that's what makes Tesla so toxic at this point. And the other thing that I'm really surprised by is corporate governance, because there's supposedly a board that is looking out for the best interest of the stockholders. And yet you've got an obvious CEO who is MIA, and yet the board seems to be, hey, you do you, Mr. Musk, and yet the stock is falling. and the company is being picketed, and no one is reining in what is, a CEO that is no longer at the helm of a company. I can't see his, fingerprints on it any longer.
Well, it seems there are things that are going to help the share prices. For example, this $400 million contract to supply armored vehicles to the government.
I think that got pulled.
The last report I read said it's likely going to happen.
Okay.
So I think, from a strictly sales numbers, that is going to help the company. Whether or not it's the right thing to do is another discussion. But I think that will probably help the share price. But apart from that, things are not looking good. They're looking very bleak. And unless that man, I think, completely disassociates from the company, things are not going to get better anytime soon.
Well, the other thing that I think that Tesla has done is they've completely lost the plot. Now, I've been covering the auto industry for 15 years, and like I said, new product is the lifeblood of any new car company. They have 2 refreshed vehicles, but as far as I can tell, the next vehicle coming down the pike is an autonomous vehicle with no steering wheel that is meant to be kind of a buy-your-own taxi. And then after that, we've got a robot and then some kind of autonomous tech. And, a car company that can't sell cars, a car company that doesn't build cars, and I know the stock market thinks that it's a technology company, but at the end of the day, I think we're going to find out that Tesla is indeed a car company. And once you stop selling cars, you stop being a company.
Well, let us know what you guys think in the comments section below on our little discussion here. Do you agree that it's toxic? Do you think that the company's going in the right direction or the wrong direction? We would love to hear your feedback. But this has been Tommy
And Roman saying thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Ciao.